So welcome to our fourth video on designing your XPRIZE. And this video is about designing for impact, or at least thinking about impact. So I have to say that the first XPRIZE that we launched, the Ansari XPRIZE, we weren't thinking about impact. We actually lucked into impact. I put over here, impact, not museum displays. And at the end of the day, how you design your prize, when you write your prize rules, it's effectively the DNA that's going to grow your organism, or it's the computer code that's going to drive everybody to, to create something beautiful that you want. And so the rules are going to, different rules will incentivize different behaviors. And you want to incentivize for impact. The Ansari XPRIZE, at the end of the day, Spaceship One ended up in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, right in the center, right next to the Spirit of St. Louis, which was magnificent. But if that had been the only result that the Ansari XPRIZE created, it would have been a very sad thing. I lucked out that Richard Branson came in and bought the rights to Spaceship One and created Virgin Galactic, and Spaceship Two, committed, close to $1 billion to commercialize it, and that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and a lot of rocket entrepreneurs say they've gotten inspired by that. But you can design the impact much more integrally so that at the end of your competition, it's not the end, it's the beginning of the impact phase of what you're going to do. So as you're working on your XPRIZE around corals, disaster prediction, farmers, feeding a billion, energy, or a number of them if you're ambitious, you're going to think about the impact of these and where do you go when the prize is won. So how are you intentionally driving impact is an important question. And impact is, in my mind, that when it's won, it's causing the change in the world that you desire. One of the great prizes I wish we had done at XPRIZE, we didn't do, was DARPA. That did this back in 2006 was the DARPA Grand Challenge. It was for the first autonomous cars. It was won by a friend of mine, Sebastian Thrun, out of Stanford with his Stanley autonomous car. And in that success of driving through the desert, Larry Page hired Sebastian and brought him in and had him create the first autonomous car efforts, which since has become Waymo, and you have Uber and all these autonomous car companies, and we're going to save millions of lives. And so how are you going to create impact out of this? Next one is, who is your audience? Who are you trying to impact with your XPRIZE? Is it the farmer in, who's actually doing the farming? Is it the government officials? Is it the world? Who is your audience? Saying it's everybody is picking nobody. So you really want to pick your audience. For me, on the Ansari XPRIZE, the audience was the space entrepreneur, the guy or gal who would actually build the spaceship. And my goal was, listen, get off your butt and go and raise the money and build this spaceship. Later on, it became also the government, the FAA in the United States. I'll just tell you a quick aside for fun. Marion Blakey was the FAA administrator, the head of the FAA. And I remember in about 2001 going to her and presenting her the XPRIZE. It was not called the Ansari XPRIZE then. We met the Ansari family just after that meeting. But I said, Administrator Blakey, here's the deal. This XPRIZE is going to have to be won outside the United States because the rules and regulations allowing it to be won in the US don't exist. And I'll never forget, in her Texas accent, she said, we'll just have to change that, won't we? And she did. And she had Patty Smith, who was running the commercial space office, actually write the regulations to allow private entrepreneurs to build and fly spaceships carrying people, not just in one direction, but actually to land and do it again. So for me, it was those space entrepreneurs and the regulators, and then secondarily, the money markets that might invest in those entrepreneurs. All right, what happens after your prize is won? We now design like this here at XPRIZE. It wasn't always that way. It was like, when the prize is won, the prize is won. We did it. Someone won the prize. No, not enough. You'd say, okay, we're going to support those companies that won the prize. We're going to go and create a market for them, right? Are you creating some kind of advanced market commitment? as part of your prize design. Like, for example, we have the Global Learning XPRIZE. Build an Android app that can teach a child reading, writing, and arithmetic in 18 months with no literate adults, right? So our goal is that when this prize is won, it was funded by Elon Musk and Tony Robbins and Scott Hassan, the DeVos family, and it's in testing right now in some 3,000 kids in Tanzania. When the final one is won, it's going to be open sourced, and then our goal is to get that app everywhere. I want to get it into the Android kernel so that every Android phone manufactured becomes a teacher. That would be amazing impact, right? So I'm trying to spark you to think about what impact looks like. How can you design that into your prize rules? Okay. What ecosystem are you creating? So you launch the prize, teams start coming in, you're recruiting teams, we'll talk about that some other time. You're recruiting teams, and the prize is moving forward, you're seeing teams demonstrate the technology, you're getting close to a winning. What's the ecosystem that you want? Where are you bringing people in so that they watch the prize being won and then they're there at the end to carry it forward? So we have right now the Global Learning XPRIZE I mentioned going on in Tanzania. I'm talking to billionaires and philanthropies around the world to launch that kind of a competition in Mexico with Spanish-speaking learning software, or in China or other parts of the planet, so that as your prize is launched and teams start competing, it becomes more and more real, and people want to be involved in something that is happening, that is real, versus just some idea. So what kind of ecosystem are you going to create along the prize so when it's won, they're there like a tsunami to sweep it forward into the world? And this is a really important one. Let me tell you this. Not every prize we launch gets won. And to be clear, if every prize we launched got won, we set the bar too low, right? So, and if on the other hand, if every prize we launch doesn't get won, we've set it too high. And it's your job as an XPRIZE designer to pick that. Remember, we said audacity versus achievability. But in my mind, if 80% are won, that's probably a good metric. But for the ones, the 2, 3, 4, 5, the 20%, if you would, that are not won, how do you make sure you design it in a way that even if the prize is not won, you're driving impact, you're driving the field forward, right? And I can give you an example. The Google Lunar XPRIZE, which is a $30 million prize to go to the moon, at the end of the day, it was incredibly difficult. And I'll make an aside to say that I probably would not have done that prize again. We set the bar so high it became a fundraising competition. So please make sure that your prize design is not a fundraising competition. If a team needs to spend $100 million to do something, raising the money is the hard part, not the design or the construction. Having said that, we launched the prize in September 2007. I was on stage with Larry Page and Buzz Aldrin and the head of NASA. We announced this competition. And just a few months ago, the Google Lunar XPRIZE ended without a winner. But I'll tell you what we did have. We had those 27 teams that entered, or 29 teams that entered. 5 of them have signed launch contracts, and there's been about $300 million raised in cumulative by all those teams to go after this prize. And a team probably will eventually win it, right? It's only been the US, the Soviet Union, and China that's landed on the moon. The 4th may be one of these Google Lunar XPRIZE teams. And while Google has stepped down as the sponsor, we're looking for another sponsor to replace them to get the time a little bit more. But at a minimum, we're going to have a Lunar XPRIZE at $0. You could have a Karma Prize. My friends at HeroX call them Karma Prizes. All right, so how do you design it so even if it's not won, you've really created impact for the world you're looking to serve? And then finally, as we've talked about all of this, does any of this conversation about impact and designing for impact, would it change any of the rules you've written so far? I want you to go back now and think about the rules you've been writing, and would you change the parameters all for impact? Would love to know if you are, and then what sponsor you might target. All right, so that's your 4 out of 5 videos in this master's class on designing an XPRIZE. One more to go, which will be the summation video. And we'll come to that next. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Hopefully you see that I am. I love recounting my memories and just this incredible world we're living in, where you can crowdsource genius and crowdsource solutions to the world's biggest problems.